Hi, my name is John Noto, and I have a serious face. But you don't have to take me that seriously. I'm an entertainer, and I have ideas. Everybody's throwing around ideas right now, and if you're a young American, you're probably wondering which ideas are the good ideas, and just what the hell is going on right now. There's a lot going on in this political climate, and again, if you're young, you're probably looking at everything happening between the media and the politicians, and you want to make some sense of it. I'd like to have an opportunity to give you what I think is a unique perspective on the whole issue. And if I'm any good at anything, I'll make you laugh too. I'm going to give you 3 things today. I'm going to give you a story, some comedy, and then a lesson that goes back to the story. Now, this story, I have a feeling you might be familiar with. The trolls had just decided to roast the dwarves now and eat them later. That was Bert's idea, and after a lot of argument, they had all agreed to it.
"No good roasting them now. It'd take all night,"
said a voice. Bert thought it was William's.
"Don't start the argument all over again, Bill," he said, "or it will take all night."
"Who's arguing?"
said William, who thought it was Bert that had spoken.
"You are,"
said Bert.
"You're a lawyer,"
said William. And so the argument began all over again. In the end, they decided to mince them fine and boil them. So they got a black pot, and they took out their knives.
"No good boiling 'em. We ain't got no water, and it's a long way to the well and all,"
said a voice. Bert and William thought it was Tom's.
"Shut up,"
said they,
"or we'll never have done. And you can fetch the water yourself if you say any more."
"Shut up yourself,"
said Tom, who thought it was William's voice.
"Who's arguing but you, I'd like to know?"
"You're a booby,"
said William.
"Booby yourself,"
said Tom. And so the argument began all over again, and went on hotter than ever, until at last they decided to sit on the sacks one by one, and squash them, and boil them next time.
"Who shall we sit on first?"
said the voice.
"Better sit on the last fellow first,"
said Bert, whose eye had been damaged by Thorin. He thought Tom was talking.
"Don't talk to yourself,"
said Tom.
"but if you wants to sit on the last one, sit on him. Which is he?" "The one with the yellow stockings,"
said Bert.
"Nonsense, the one with the grey stockings,"
said a voice like William's.
"I made sure it was yellow,"
said Bert.
"Yellow it was,"
said William.
"Then what did you say it was grey for?"
said Bert.
"I never did. Tom said it."
"What I never did," said Tom. "It was you." "2 to 1, so shut your mouth,"
said Bert.
"Who are you a-talking to?"
said William.
"Now stop it,"
said Tom and Bert together.
"The night's getting on, and dawn comes early. Let's get on with it."
"Dawn take you all and be stoned to you!"
For just at that moment, the light came over the hill, and there was a mighty twitter in the branches. William never spoke, for he stood turned to stone as he stooped, and Bert and Tom were stuck like rocks as they looked at him. And there they stand to this day, all alone unless the birds perch on them. For trolls, as you probably know, must be underground before dawn, or they go back to the stuff of the mountains they are made of. and never move again. That is what happened to Bert and Tom and William. You're probably familiar with that story. That's The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. When I was a kid, that was my favorite book, and I think it still is today. Now, that's a pretty classic scene right there. Maybe you've seen it in the movie, maybe you've heard it told to you, maybe you saw the old cartoon. It's pretty straightforward. The dwarves and the hobbit have been captured. The 3 trolls that have captured them are going to eat them, but they have to eat them quickly because when the sun comes up, these 3 trolls, 3 friends, you should know, will turn to stone. Gandalf, the wizard, takes advantage of this. Gandalf the wizard decides that he's going to hide behind certain areas where they can't see him, and he's going to shout towards them in the voice of one another. By doing this, Gandalf is able to buy time, and when the sun rises, they all turn to stone. Now, in this story, we definitely like Gandalf. Gandalf's the good guy, and the trolls are clearly the bad guy. No question about that. But it's an interesting story because I think it's worth questioning if anyone's ever doing this to you in real life. I read a lot of what gets put out there by the mainstream media. I read a lot of what gets put out there by people I know on my Facebook feed, on all the social media platforms. For the past few years, probably since, well, let's just call it the 2010s, everybody. We got the new 20s coming up. Throughout the 2010s, I felt that there's been a growing narrative that exists underneath most of what gets said. And the narrative is this: white men must live in shame, black men must live in fear. Think about that for a second. Black men must live in fear, white men must live in shame. There was an article recently written by a man named Jeff Yang for CNN, and it was his analysis and review, I should say, of the movie Joker. He watched the movie The Joker, and his interpretation of this was that the character Fletch, whoever the Joker's character's name is, I think it's Arthur Fletch in the movie, that he represents all white men and the anger that all white men have, and this represents white men lashing out at minorities. Now, everybody's entitled to their opinion, and maybe Jeff sees something that I don't. But I find it hard to understand that a movie about a white man who is clearly insane and has an insanity that most people don't have. Most black people don't have this condition. Most white people don't have this condition. It's clearly an insanity that most people don't have, and in the movie, as he goes crazy, all of the people he kills on screen are white people. And yet somehow, to a person who's supposed to be more educated than I am, somebody who works for CNN, his interpretation of the whole thing was that it was white men lashing out at minorities, and that's what it represented. How do you come to a conclusion like that? That's the question I'm asking right now. And I'd say you can come to that conclusion if you are going along with a narrative. White men must feel shame, black men must feel fear. There are people in media right now who are basically playing the role of Gandalf while we play the role of these 3 trolls. Black Americans and white Americans love each other. No, really, we actually do. If you ever have a face-to-face conversation, that's what you're going to find 99.99% of the time. Everything else is an exception to the rule. And yet, everything seems so bleak and unhappy, like there's no hope for the different Americans to get along. Well, Ask yourself how much media and social media are playing into that. I believe there is a narrative underneath much of what gets written, published, and put out there today. Black men must live in fear. White men must live in shame. That's Black Americans and white Americans. Keep it in mind. I'm open to the idea that I could be wrong. I'm no conspiracy theorist, but it's something I've got a feeling for right now. So again, keep this in mind. See if you can find anything that goes along with this idea, or maybe anything that contradicts it, and you'll know what to do with the information. Now, I got a few more things to say, but let me give you some comedy first.
Hey everybody, my name is John Noto. Noto is spelt, they're already laughing at me. Noto is spelt N-O-T-O. You know, with a last name like Noto, people are always going to pick on you. Back in grade school, they would say Johnny No-No, Johnny No Nuts, and then Johnny Faggot Face, which has nothing to do with that. I said it to me. It's John Noto. You know, with a name like Noto, they're always picking on you. Okay? I ran for school president. The kids said, say no to Noto. I auditioned for chorus. They said, Noto's got no notes. I ran out of cash. They said, Noto's got no dough. And then I tried to kiss a girl, and she said, no, don't. It's Noto. John Noto. And you know what else gets me made fun of? I have a serious face. I have a serious face. Everywhere I go. People mistake me for cops, the store manager, and the president of the Young Republicans Club. Women talk about resting bitch face. I have resting Mike Pence face. I have the face of a guy who needs to watch Sean Hannity to get hard. I have a serious face. A cop pulled me over. I gave him a ticket. I've got the face of Dustin Hoffman in The Graduate. Except I tried seducing Mrs. Robinson and she said, no, don't! Jeez, can't believe it. Yeah, I've always had a serious face. When I was 6 years old, I auditioned for Tiny Tim in the Christmas play. I got Scrooge! I have the face of a guy who has a pen, but I won't let you borrow it. I have the face of a guy who's apologized many times to Al Sharpton. Guys, I've got a serious face. Whatever you're doing, I look like I disapprove. Like, man, if you were to take your top off right now, I would be happy, but I'd still look like this.
Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Always remember, everyone's pushing a narrative. It's not just the narrative I mentioned earlier of somebody trying to stir up drama between all the different races of America. There are many different narratives that are being pushed, and it doesn't matter whether it's Fox, MSNBC, CNN, or the Huffington Post, Alex Jones, the Daily Wire, or the Young Turks. Everybody's pushing a narrative, and it doesn't mean that the information they're giving you is useless, but it means you're not going to be able to make good use of the information you're being given until you know what narrative they're pushing. So always keep your eyes peeled. Thanks again for watching, and I hope you can like, share, subscribe, and do all that other stuff that people do with YouTube. Thanks again.